A notable ridge is going to bring warmer than average temperatures to a lot of the northern U.S. as we go into the week ahead, and there's going to be some storms banking up against that ridging up from the western and eastern sides. In this video, I've got the details on both ends of that weather pattern, from the warm air to the cool air and storms, plus I've got to look at a long-range system you need to watch.
One nation weather.
Thank you so much for taking the time to tune into this video. I hope you're having a great start to the week or into the weekend, depending on when you're watching this. Don't forget, as always, that the weather model maps that I use in my videos are from WeatherBell, and there's a free trial link to them below in the description. But let's go and start using those maps to take a look at the mid-level pattern about 15 to 20,000 feet up in the atmosphere as we go into the week ahead. What happens up in the atmosphere really dictates what occurs right down at the surface, and as we head into the middle of this week, around Tuesday, September 17th at 8 p.m., you can see we're going to have a couple of mid-level low-pressure systems and one mid to upper-level high-pressure system to watch. All of these really playing a big role in the pattern. The biggest system really going to be that high pressure that extends anywhere from the Dakotas over to Maine. We're going to see a lot of warmer than average air from the central and north central U.S. to the northeast because of this. Meanwhile, though, banking up against it from the southeastern side, we're going to have a low pressure system that could briefly become tropical to start the week, moving out of the southeast into the mid-Atlantic as the week goes on. We're also going to be watching low pressure moving out of the Rockies and towards the central plains. So a couple of different areas to watch for sure. Notice how that blue area in the west really continues to circulate around. That could be a big driver of the pattern, not only this week, but even as we go into the upcoming weekend, once some energy is actually able to slide out of there and move into the central United States. Playing things out on the future radar side of things with the European model so that you can visualize what I just showed you in the atmosphere and now taking it down to the surface as we go into our Monday, September 16th of 2024. Notice we've got a pretty notable area of small low pressure. This is what's probably going to form into Tropical Storm Helene briefly before a South Carolina or North Carolina landfall soon after I film this video. Into the Carolinas, up to Virginia, we're going to already start to feel the impacts Monday with some breeziness and some heavier rainfall. By the time we go into Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, we'll continue to watch the low disintegrate over those regions. A low that's actually going to be picking up steam as we go through those days, though, is going to be this one. You can already see the weak end of it as we go into our Monday, September 16th, into the afternoon and evening hours, from Nevada and Idaho all the way down here to northern New Mexico, watching some general scattered shower and gusty wind coverage across the Mountain West. Notice that L icon moving out of places like Utah and Wyoming and Colorado up there into parts of Montana, and that little pivot's actually going to extend some of this moisture from northern New Mexico all the way on up there and around into parts of Idaho and Montana. This low is going to be strong enough we're going to be seeing, especially with elevation, those gusty winds. We'll also be watching isolated severe weather in the form of winds and hail coming into the front range, so be on the lookout for that. On our Tuesday, also watching some of that rainfall continuing from our remnant low in the mid-Atlantic and southeast regions of the U.S. By Wednesday, continuing to watch both of the same areas, although the Mountain West and mid-Atlantic zones are starting to weaken in terms of their amount of precipitation. I know I keep flying around, but just drawing our attention back up to the north central United States as we go out of late Thursday into our early Friday, so late September 19th into our early September 20th, we could see some isolated severe weather get going. You can see that really moving out of the eastern Dakotas and into Minnesota. This would be a pretty short-lived event as that storm weakens out, but right behind that we could see another storm, and that could be a bigger one for a lot of the northern and central U.S. So make sure you're staying tuned to the end of the video for the details on that, but also make sure you're staying tuned with me in the future so you never miss a full weather video update. Hit that subscribe button down below. I'm almost to 5,300 subscribers. Also, for those of you continuing to watch this video right now, make sure that you're using timestamps in the description. Those will help you navigate to the part of the video that affects you. So if you don't live in the southeast and mid-Atlantic, I'd be using those timestamps right now because I'm going to spend the next couple minutes talking about this brief tropical system that's going to move inland by the time we go out of Monday and into our Tuesday. And in fact, that's what I'm looking at right now. Note if you live in a place like Myrtle Beach or Charleston in South Carolina that this map does not include you. This is the rainfall just after the window when it would hit you. By the time we go into our late Monday and into our Tuesday, though, you can really see where this heaviest rain is being projected to be in that 24-hour window. Through most of the state of North Carolina and most of the state of Virginia, we're looking at 1 inch to 3 inches of rain in a broad expanse in a quick period of time. We could definitely be seeing some isolated flooding. I don't think many places will crack that 4 to 5 inch mark of rain, but if we do see that, it would probably be in the eastern parts of those states, and we could also see an isolated tornado threat there. Be prepared for that, and then after that, we're really just going to watch a little bit of isolated coverage of some rainfall through the rest of the week in the southeast and mid-Atlantic with that low lingering around. In terms of the wind gusts, this is expected to make landfall as a tropical storm named Helene, according to the National Hurricane Center in their Sunday evening update. Nonetheless, models aren't too gung-ho on much more than some 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts coming ashore. My best advice at this point is just to make sure that you have anything loose outside that you can tie down if you live in South Carolina, North Carolina, or Eastern Virginia. Have that tied down. Other than that, there's not much you can do to prepare for, say, 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts moving inland, and overall these gusts are really going to taper on down towards 25 to 30 at the peak in most spots by as early as Tuesday afternoon, as you can see here. Not too high in the way of those gusts, not too extreme of a system, but definitely something to look out for, and it was worth mentioning in this video. What's also worth mentioning in this video is the temperature anomalies that we're going to be having as we go into the week ahead, and as we go into our Monday, September 16th of 2024. You can see that we've got cooler than average air, where we've got some rainfall from our tropical entity there in the southeast. Other than that, though, a lot of the country warmer than average, 10, 15, even 20 degrees above normal here from parts of the Front Range of the Rockies all the way on over there to Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, and as far east as Maine. The only spot way below average there in the Mountain West, and that's going to continue into Wednesday. Look at those anomalies over California, Nevada. Most communities are going to be spending this week 15 to 20 degrees below average at least as we go throughout this week. That is crazy. Meanwhile, as we go up here into the north central U.S., the Great Lakes, and the Northeast, we're looking at most spots staying around 10 to 15 degrees above average, with that high pressure ridging I showed you earlier continuing. Down here in the southeast and mid-Atlantic, around average temperatures as we go into our Wednesday. By the time we go towards Friday, notice still some cooler than average air in some parts of the west. Not as extreme, but definitely Nevada, Utah, and Arizona feeling those 10-degree below average temperatures. Meanwhile, over here in the central U.S., up to the north central regions, we've got that 10 to 15 degree shield of warmer than average temperatures. I'm telling you that this warmer than average air is going to have to give way at some point. It might take a long time, but once it does, it could certainly be with a strong storm bringing in cooler air from the west, and it could definitely bring some severe weather. Something to look out for further down the road. But for now, let's go ahead and take a look at what these anomalies mean for our exact temperatures. Here we go into our Monday, September 16th with those afternoon highs. You can see why temperatures are considered 15 degrees above normal up here in the upper Midwest and Great Lakes. When we should be near 70 to 80, we're more like 80 to 90 at least in many of these communities, from the Dakotas all the way as far east as parts of the Ohio Valley. All week long, we're going to be like this in a lot of these areas, especially as you go further south there towards Texas and Oklahoma, where it's just going to be in the 80s and 90s most, if not all of the week. Meanwhile, just to the west of this out here in the Mountain West in California, Nevada, Utah, Idaho, Washington State, and Oregon, we've got a lot of 70s in the valleys. In fact, some of those 70s there in the valleys of California, they will be breaking record minimum high temperatures. In other words, temperatures have never been this cool before for a peak temperature in the day since records have been kept. By the time we go into our Tuesday, September 17th of 2024, still looking at warmer than average air for a lot of the U.S. Of course, that's going to be an all-week thing for especially the northern and central zones. Upper 80s from Illinois to Iowa, back down to Oklahoma and Texas, where we've even got some 90s in the mix in some of the central parts of those states. Just a warm week in general, but the further east you go in that circle area I have right there, you get cooler, and in fact, there's that blip where we're going to have that low pressure in the mid-Atlantic and in some parts of southern New England by the time we go into our Tuesday. Look at this, these numbers in parts of the upstate of South Carolina, a lot of central North Carolina, Virginia, as far north as Maryland, Pennsylvania into New York. We're looking at plenty of mid to upper 70s. That's it for high temperatures. And of course, even there in some of the higher elevations of West Virginia, we might not even crack the 70-degree mark. Wednesday afternoon, it's a little tamer high temperature-wise, especially up there in the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Michigan, where we were in the mid to upper 80s in some spots on Tuesday. Only the low 80s, but still warmer than average for a lot of communities there. By Thursday, here's that warmer than average air even beginning to return to some of the southeast U.S. The low pressure disintegrating here. It's not going to be fully a week-long thing with the low pressure, so we're going to see some mid-80s return even to the Carolinas, parts of Tennessee, even up into some parts of southern Virginia feeling the 80-degree warmth by our Thursday afternoon. Also Thursday afternoon, looking at some more upper 90s in some parts of Texas and Oklahoma. In fact, these are going to be some of the warmest numbers we get all week. Temperatures around 10 to 15 degrees above average in these areas going out of Thursday as well as towards Friday. Meanwhile, just to the west of that, we've just got this cool air lingering around. It's not really forcing its way up against the warm air, but you can certainly note the contrast from the central U.S. to the west, where we've got these 60s and 70s and a lot of even some of the valley locations for highs. By Friday afternoon, even some of the Dakotas getting in on 70s for highs. That's technically behind that little cold front that could bring isolated severe weather to those same areas around Thursday and Thursday night. Overall, though, no huge fronts, no major clashing of the cool and warm air masses, and I don't even think we're going to see that by the time we go into the upcoming weekend, but we are going to see a storm move out of the Mountain West and as far east as the Midwestern U.S., I think. Look at this, by the time we go into our Sunday, September 22nd, around 8 a.m., we're looking at that blue area, that little middle of a low pressure system, being indicated, at least by this model, into parts of Nebraska and Kansas, starting to see that stronger counterclockwise flow around the low. Sometime Friday or Saturday evening, we could certainly see some isolated severe weather coming out of the Front Range there, and especially into the Central Plains because of this storm. tapping into a little bit of that warm air out ahead of it, we could certainly see some of those impacts. It is probably going to weaken while it moves east, but it might get a little bit of an attachment from the north to help it out. So there's definitely some stuff to watch down the line, and I think that means that we're going to be a little bit stormier, not necessarily severe storms, not necessarily a bunch of flooding, but a little bit more active than we've been from Texas all the way up here to some parts of the upper Midwest and maybe even the Great Lakes and Midwest. That's a little bit more questionable. But from September 20th to September 23rd, those green areas having the best chance of being a little bit more active by the time we go to the end of this week and into the upcoming weekend. Now, as we go to the upcoming weekend, about 7 days out from when I'm filming this video, around September 22nd, I'm anticipating warmer than average conditions to, you guessed it, continue from Minnesota over to Maine. That's where that peak of these warmer than average conditions is expected based on current model and ensemble guidance. As far south as the south central U.S. and Texas, though, we're still looking at warmer than average air. And look at that, cooler than average air in the west. If that cooler than average air ever really bumps up against that warmer air, we could see a bigger storm cross the U.S. I really do think that is a longer term possibility, but for now, we are just bone dry across a lot of the U.S. I've seen some comments on it. I saw a comment on it earlier today from southwest Indiana. We need the prayers for the rain, that is for sure. It has just been so parched from Ohio back down to Mississippi. That drought will probably improve because of the rain that just moved through, but up here into parts of the Central Plains and the Mountain West as well, some severe droughts ongoing in a lot of communities. I'm definitely praying for you guys, and I'm hoping that some rain is on the way. I'll let you know when it is. I've got those consistent, accurate, and educational updates right here on this channel. Make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, turning on those notifications, hitting the like button, all that fun stuff. I'll see you right back here, probably Tuesday in the next update video.
One nation weather.